Hi lovelies, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going about the making of this beautiful gown you see right here on your screen. So it has slits at both sides and it also has a drawstring waistline. This style of gown is something you definitely want to add to your collections. This is something you definitely want to learn how to make. So continue watching without much ado. Let's get started with today's tutorial. You need nothing less than 2 yards of fabric if you're trying to create this style of dress, and it must be 60 inches in length. So I'm making use of this flowered crepe fabric that has a black background and these beautiful designs at the top part and also at the base. I folded this my fabric into four. So how I did this was that I folded my fabric the normal way we fold into two. As you can see, I'm trying to show you right here. So when you fold into two, as you can see, you then fold again, making it four in total. So right here I have four folds because I'm cutting out the front part and the back part of this gown together. So to determine how many inches you're supposed to fold, the first thing you will do is to mark out your shoulder length. So here my shoulder is 8 inches. Then I added my sleeve length. So my sleeve length here is going to be 11 inches. Hope you understand. So that is how I measured out the actual length I'm supposed to fold. Sorry. So the next thing I'm going to work on now is the neck width. From that edge of my fabric I marked 2.5 inches because this gown actually has a collar. The neck is not supposed to be so wide. Now on that shoulder where I marked my shoulder, I marked 1 inch below. Now I'm connecting this in this slanted way into my neck width. Okay, so I'm trying to get my shoulder slant, then I cut off that excess. So from the top part of my fabric I'm marking 3/4 of an inch. So that is going to be for my what, my shoulder line and my joining allowance for the front part of my gown and also the back part of my gown. So take note of all of these things I'm doing right here. Okay, so make sure that it stops exactly on your neck width. So the next thing I'll determine here now is going to be my armhole length. So the armhole length I marked here is 11 inches. So I just extended that line, that point I made right there, into a straight line. So the next one I'm going to mark here will be my half length. So the half length I'm working with here is 17 inches, sorry. And if you watch properly, you will realize that I placed my tape starting from that shoulder line, which I marked from the top part of my fabric. Okay, so for my waistline I am counted 8 inches below, and that is going to be my hip line. So if you are taller or if you are tall, you can go with 8.5 inches or 9 inches as your hip length. I divided my bust circumference by 4. I marked what I have on this first line and I added 3 inches extra, which is going to be for my ease allowance and also my swing allowance. I repeated the same thing for my waist. I divided my waist circumference by 4 and added 3 inches. On my hip, I'm dividing my hip by 4 and adding extra 3 inches. 1.5 inches will be for my stitching and sewing allowance, and 1.5 inches will be for the allowance that makes the dress slightly free. Now from this first line I have right here, I'm just going to place my tape this way and mark 1 inch upward. So I'm just trying to reduce the um length of my armhole slightly, okay, because I don't want it too big or open. All right, then I'm going to now connect all the way into my hip line. So that first line now will be considered my chest line. Okay, so the next I'm going to do is to get the length of this gown. Pay attention to where I'm keeping my tape, which is on that shoulder line of 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to determine the length of my gown. So because the full length of this gown is actually 58 inches, I'll be making use of everything because the actual length I'm working with is 56 inches. So by the time I'm done folding, I'll be having 56 inches. I measured out everything I have on my hip line, and I'm going to mark exactly the same thing at the base of this my gown. So that is what I want to have, and I'm just connecting this straight down from my hip line all the way to the base of this my fabric. I'm done drafting and I'm just going to go ahead now to cut this out. So you can see what I've done right here so far. This is it. So the next I'm going to work on is the neck depth. I already have a neck width of 2.5 inches. The neck depth as well, I'm going to mark 2.5 inches. So I'll create a block neckline first. Then from the block neckline, I'm going to curve this to get my round neckline. So I'll cut this out as so. So you know that the front and the back gown, they are together here. Okay, so I'm going to open this up so that I'm going to remove one part of the gown. So I've removed that inner one, I've removed it. So I want to work with this one that has chalk marks on it. Okay, so I'm going to fold this back. All right, so I'm going to fold it back into two. Now I'm going to actually determine the front neckline. You know, the front neckline, the back neckline are not the same. So from that top part of my fabric, I just marked 7 inches. Okay, so this 7 inches, now I'm going to come to that edge right there and go in by just 1 inch, or you can do half of an inch. All right, so from there I will now slant this into that 7 inches neck depth I marked earlier, sorry. Then I'll cut this out. You can actually make your neck depth deeper than mine. You can actually make it higher, but remember that we're not adding any zipper to this dress, so be very cautious and careful so that you don't do something that at the end of the day it can easily pass through your head. I'm cutting out a facing now for the neckline, and it's just going to be from this point to this point. I'm not going to cut out for the other round neckline side. Okay, see where I stopped? So that's the only part I'm cutting the facing for. So I cut out, and at the other side I'm cutting this out as well. So for the side you can cut out 2.5 inches in case you are wondering how many inches I cut out. So you see, I cut out 2.5 inches or 3 inches. So when I open it up, this is what I have. So I'm going to place it on my fabric so I can see what it looks like right there. So this is the neckline, this is the shape of the neckline. I can make mine deeper, but no, I'm okay with this. So the facing, my facing, right side facing my the neckline of this my gown, see, I'm going to stitch this all around on the v-shaped part. Then for these other edges that are rough, I'll just fold it once and stitch all around, so that by the time I'm ironing my hemming gum, it's going to come out neat. I've always done this on my channel. My subscribers are already used to this, right? I've stitched the facing, and the next thing is to turn it now to the wrong side of my fabric, this way you can see, and then iron this very well. I'll put my hemming gum in between so that it can stick together with my facing and my fabric. Okay, so that I don't have my facing at the end of the day coming out at the front part of my dress when I put it on. So the next thing you're going to cut out is something called the flap around the waistline area. So this flap I have right here is 5 inches wide. I stitch both sides using just half of an inch, and in length it is 4 inches. Just get a fabric and fold it into two, and just take note of all these inches I just mentioned right here. I've turned this to the right side, as you can see right here now. Now I'm going to go to my sewing machine and stitch it all around the four corner. Okay, so I've done this for the two sides, and you can see it's looking flatter than it was when I earlier showed it right here. So I just kept that aside so that I'll continue working for the front part of my gown. So I folded this my gown into two. This is the front part, not the back. Okay, so from my shoulder line, remember the 3/4 of an inch, I'm going to measure my half length of 17 inches and add extra 1 inch. So altogether now I measured 18 inches from my shoulder line. So I'm also going to make a slight cut on my actual waistline. So if your waistline is 16 inches, add extra 1 inch, which is going to make it 17 inches. Okay, so now from the center of this my gown, I'm going to mark in 3 inches. At this point I'm trying to fix this flap. Okay, so it's supposed to be 1 inch below the waistline. So since I told you all that it is 4 inches in height or in length, so I'm going to fold in about 3/4 of an inch and place it exactly on that line I marked right there. Okay, so I'll fold this and now pin my flap to the body of this my gown. This is the front part of my gown. All right, so by the time I go to my sewing machine, I'll now fold this in this way and stitch on top exactly on that line. Okay, so I took note of the middle of this my gown so that I can spread this out and also pin my flap for the other side of my gown. Okay, so this is the middle of my gown here, and I'm also going to extend that line on this other side, that line of 18 inches from my shoulder into this other side of my gown. So from the middle of my gown as well, I'll mark 3 inches so that I can also pin the other side of my flap. So this is it. Okay, folding 3/4 of an inch, I'll pin it on that line. All right, you can see, and that is it for the two flap. Okay, so I'll just go to my sewing machine and fold that top part. Okay, that top part is the part that was open where I turned this over from and stitch it together. So after that, you need to cut out rope. you need to cut out a long piece that is at least 2 inches wide. So I had two piece of this fabric because mine wasn't long enough. I'm going to join them. Then aside that, I still have another one that is 1.5 inches wide. I cut out two pieces as well because I couldn't get a one piece long rope. I'm going to sew this as a rope because it will be serving as our rope. Okay, so I've gone ahead now to stitch my flap to this my front dress. You can see what it's looking like right here. So the next I'm going to do is to get the back part of my gown so that I can start joining them together. So overlook my facing on the neckline. There was no light at the moment, but before the end of the tutorial I will have to iron it out. Okay, right sides facing each other for the front and the back part of my gown. I'm going to pin this on the shoulder because I'm trying to join this now at this point. So when I'm done pinning, I'll stitch it down using 3/4 of an inch. Then the armhole area, I'm also going to fold this into two and stitch. So when you are done stitching, I'll just assume that I've stitched this down. I'm going to arrange the sides of this my dress together this way, as you can see. So I'm going to pin it together from the beginning part all the way to the base. So on that part, I just joined using half of an inch. As you can see, I'm marking it right there. So immediately I get to this cuff part, I'm just going to start marking 1.5 inches, which is for my sewing or my stitching allowance. Okay, so I'm going to continue marking this 1.5 inches till I get to the base or the ends of this gown. So the thing there is that this gown has a slit at both sides. I'm actually not going to stitch up to the base. All right, so all I'm going to do is that from the base of my gown, I'm going to mark at least 20 inches upward. So you can actually make your slit higher than mine, or you can actually make it lower, but mine from the base is 20 inches. Okay, so that is where I'm going to stitch and stop exactly on this 20 inches, which is where my slit will be starting. All right, so as simple as it is, do it for the both sides of the gown. So after that, now this is after stitching the both sides of my gown. This is the front part. So next I'm going to do now is to highlight that middle part of my gown very well. Then at the flap, that flap I stitch, I'm going to mark 1 inch upward. So you can see now from my shoulder to that 1 inch I mark upward is actually my half length. So my flap here is 1 inch below my half length. Okay, so the same thing I'm going to do for the back part of my gown. From the shoulder, I'm going to mark the half length of 17 inches. This is the point where we are going to fix our drawstring. Use your ruler and as well to also extend that point which you've made so far. Okay, then I'm going to flip this back to the front part. Make sure that everything corresponds for the front line and the back line as well. So that other rope I said initially that was 2 inches wide is what I'm actually going to be stitching on this my dress. Fold the rough part or the rough edge, like the beginning part, into two and stitch it down using your sewing machine. Then right side of this piece I have right here, facing the right side of my gown, I am going to pin them this way, exactly on that 1 inch line I marked upward from this flap. All right, so I'm pinning this only to the front part of my gown. It shouldn't be pinned together with the back part of your gown because when you do that you won't be able to wear it. Okay, so I'm going to pin it to the front part alone. So I'll continue doing this all the way around till I get to the other side of the front part of my gown. So that line which I was marking and all of that was a guide. Okay, so this is a guide for me to actually do this. So following the lines I have on this my dress, I'm going to stitch this all around. Okay, so I'll just take you to my sewing machine so you understand better. So right here on my sewing machine, you can see all the adjustments I'm making so that I will not have this my fabric on my dress unfold, so that I can stitch this plain on that line. Okay, I hope you understand what I'm doing right here. So you can see how I'm just making sure that everything is straightened out. There are no folds underneath, there are no folds around on that line. So that line is really important for you to mark because it is going to serve as your guide so that you don't have this going up and down and unequal at the end of the day. All right, so this is what I'm going to do until I get to the other side of my gown at the front side. Okay, so just watch. So you can see I'm taking my time to go about this, right? You too should also do the same thing. So when I get to the other front part, you also see it for yourself. Make sure you also fold in um that beginning part, you can see, and make sure you stop exactly on that middle line, on the middle part of our gown. So after this, you're just going to flip this to the right side now at this point, and now fold in at least quarter of an inch on the rough edge, and then stitch the same way you stitch the other side. So that is how simple it is. So this is it. It's kind of contrasting because it's black to black. Okay, so all around I've stitched this and I've created a channel. Okay, this is how to create your drawstring for your gown. So the next thing I'm going to do is to get my safety pin. I'll pin it to my rope, which I showed you all earlier on to stitch, and I'm just going to start passing this through from one side through this channel I've created for my drawstring. I'll pass it all around till I get to the other front side. Okay, so it will pass through all around till I get to the front side, okay, from the other side. So that's how simple this is. Honestly, it's not hard at all. So you see it right here. Our drawstring has automatically been fixed. So the next part I'm going to go over is the base of this my gown. So remember, the slit is still open and we've not done anything about it. So all I'm going to do right here now is to make a slight cut on exactly that point where my stitching stopped. Okay, so I'm not going to cut through the thread. I'm just going to make a slight cut and then fold. I'll then take them up, fold them into two, and stitch for the front part and the back part. Don't stitch them together, stitch them separately. Okay, so that is it for the both sides. That's what you do. And the next thing is to cut out the collar. I've already ironed my facing to my dress like I promised, and then I'm going to fold my neckline into two. I'll measure my neckline so that I'm going to cut out my collar. It's actually a one step collar. Some people call it a bishop collar as well. So when I measured out my neckline here, I have 6 inches and quarter. So now I have this my hat stay. This is actually a hat stay. You can use your pepper stay. Okay, so I'm now marking that 6 inches and quarter as the length. Then I'll mark 1 inch, which will be the height of my collar. All right, because it's not a big collar. So I'll also connect this point together. From that top part, I'm going to curve this so that it can blend in. Okay, so that's the part that will be in front of our neckline. Then I'll go ahead and cut this out. So this collar is actually one of the simplest collar that you can actually cut out. I have series of tutorials on how to go about this. Okay, I will get the fabric and I'm going to fold this into two. Okay, I'm going to fold this my fabric into two this way, and now place this collar on top of it like this. I'll go ahead and iron and stitch everything around before I go ahead to fix. So this is it. You can see I've stitched the collar part. So something I omitted here was that stuff that was fixed to the sleeve part of the gown that was buttoned. So that's what I'm trying to cut out now. I have this fabric folded into four. So all I'm going to do now is that from the two sides of this fabric, I'm actually going to mark half of an inch, okay, inward. So in length is 9 inches. All right, in length is 9 inches because I know I reduce it here. So it's 9.5 inches instead, not 9 inches. So from the two sides, I'll mark about half inch inside. So when I measured it out, it was 1.5 inches wide, right? So from two sides at this edge, half inch from this side, and I'll go up by 2 inches at the other side, half inch as well, and I'll go up by 2 inches and then connect them together. So the same way I connected is the same way I'm going to cut out and also stitch as well. So you can see what I'm doing right here so far. So right now I have 4 pieces of this, and I'm just going to stitch like this and stitch like this. So this is it after stitching, and the next thing is to actually fix this to my, so after stitching I have, it is now 1 inch wide. Okay, I folded this into two to notch or get the middle part, Now I'm going to get this my dress. So on that part I have my joinings for the front and the back part of my gown on the shoulder. I lose I lose the stitch I have right there slightly so that I can easily fix this. Okay, it almost skipped my mind till I went back to the style of the dress. So I now open the stitch, sorry. Now I'm going to place this I have in between the joints I have for the front and the back part of my gown like this. You can see I folded once and I placed this, then I'm going to fold it again for the second time. You can see. So when you fix this, make sure that this piece you have fixed your shoulder is inside, so that by the time you turn this your dress to the front side, this is what it's going to look like. Then from the inside you bring it up on top of the right side of your fabric. I hope this is not confusing at all. So on that point I'll fix my button and stitch, and that's basically all for today's tutorial. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all in my next one. Bye.